Please, Mia. Grandma really needs you right now. She's not feeling well at all. My mom's voice crackled through the phone, thick with what I now recognize as fake concern. I sat in my small apartment in Denver, surrounded by the neatly packed suitcases I had prepared for our long-anticipated family vacation, a week-long Alaskan cruise. My excitement drained. Of course I'll stay, I said. The cruise isn't important if Grandma needs help. Those words would come back to haunt me just hours later. My name is Mia Carter, and I'm 30 years old. All my life, I've been the dependable one, the daughter my family could always count on. But that dedication was about to be tested in a way I never saw coming. This trip had been planned for months, my parents, my younger brother Jake, my aunt and uncle, and me. I had saved for a year, picking up extra shifts at the law firm where I worked, even buying new clothes specifically for the trip. But when Mom called about Grandma being rushed to the hospital, I didn't even think twice about canceling. That evening, as I drove to the hospital, my phone buzzed with a notification. It was from Jake's social media. My stomach clenched as I glanced at the screen. A photo. My entire family stood on the deck of a massive cruise ship, champagne glasses raised in celebration. Best vacation ever. So blessed to have this time with my amazing family. #Alaska, #family time, #cruise life. I pulled over, my hands trembling as I stared at the image. There they were. My parents, Jake, my aunt and uncle, all smiling broadly in the golden glow of the setting sun. They had lied to me. Deliberately. They had used my love for Grandma as an excuse to cut me out of the trip. I immediately called my mother. No answer. I called my father. Straight to voicemail. Jake's social media account. Locked. Within minutes, I had been blocked. The betrayal felt like a punch to the gut, knocking the wind out of me. Fighting back tears, I turned the car around and headed toward Grandma's house instead. I needed to see her to make sense of this. When I pulled up, the lights were on. I knocked. To my shock, she answered the door, looking completely fine, healthy, strong, and more confused than I was. Mia? Sweetheart, what's wrong? She asked, pulling me into a warm hug. The scent of her familiar lavender perfume made my throat tighten. I couldn't hold it in any longer. As we sat in her cozy living room, everything came spilling out. The canceled trip, the lie about her being in the hospital, the social media post that shattered me. I don't understand, I choked out, wiping my eyes. Why would they do this to me? Why lie about you being sick? Grandma's expression darkened. She had always loved Jake and me equally, but I knew my parents were a different story. Growing up in Denver, I had watched them favor my brother time and time again. When Jake wanted a car at 16, they bought him one. When I needed help with college tuition, I had to take out loans. I thought back to all the weekends I had spent with Grandma, helping her with groceries, driving her to appointments, or just keeping her company as we looked through old photo albums. Jake barely visited, unless, of course, he needed something. Usually money. Yet somehow, he was still their golden child. Grandma sighed, shaking her head. Your mother called me last week, she said, anger creeping into her voice. She asked me to go along with the lie if you came by, to pretend I had been in the hospital. I refused, of course. But I had no idea they would actually go through with it. I felt sick. The cruise had cost nearly $2,500 per person. I had worked extra hours, sacrificed weekends, and skipped dinners out with friends to afford my ticket. And now? Now I couldn't help but wonder, had they ever planned to include me at all? Or had they simply taken my money and given my spot to someone else? I clenched my fists, my jaw tightening as realization hit me. They never wanted me there. And they had used my love for Grandma to make sure I wouldn't come. Grandma reached for my hand, her eyes filled with regret. Mia, listen to me. I know this hurts, but you don't need their approval to be happy. And you sure as hell don't need to keep being the one they take advantage of. I swallowed hard, nodding. Something inside me shifted in that moment. I had spent my whole life trying to be the responsible one, the dependable daughter, the one who put family first. But if family didn't do the same for me, then maybe it was time I stopped trying. That night, as I lay in bed at Grandma's house, I pulled out my phone and made a decision. I blocked their numbers, deleted them from social media, and instead of wasting another second mourning what I had lost, I opened my laptop and booked myself a trip, one just for me. For the first time in my life, I wasn't waiting for my family to include me. I was choosing myself. And it felt incredible. Somehow, they funded someone else's cabin with my money. I clenched my fists, staring at my hands as the weight of the truth settled over me. You know what hurts the most? I whispered, my voice tight. They didn't even need an elaborate excuse. They could have just told me they didn't want me there. But instead, they used you, knowing how much I care about you, to manipulate me. Grandma reached for my hand, her grip surprisingly strong for someone her age. Sometimes, people show you exactly who they are, even when they think they're hiding it, she said wisely. The question is, what are you going to do with that knowledge? I looked up at her, seeing something fierce and determined in her eyes. I had always thought of Grandma as gentle and kind, but now I realized she had been watching our family dynamics more closely than any of us had ever guessed. And she had plans of her own. As I sat with Grandma in her cozy Denver home, my phone buzzed again. Another notification. This time, it was a group text from my cousin Nia, who had no idea I had been excluded from the cruise. She had meant to send vacation photos to everyone in the family group chat, not realizing I wasn't supposed to see them. My stomach dropped as I hesitated, then opened the message. There was Jake, standing on the ship's deck, wearing the sunglasses I had helped him pick out. My parents, lounging by the pool, tropical drinks in hand. The whole family gathered for a formal dinner, dressed to the nines, laughing like nothing was wrong. But it wasn't just their smiling faces that made my breath catch in my throat. It was my mom's diamond necklace. The one Grandma had given her years ago, meant to be passed down to both of her daughters when we turned 30. My heart pounded. She gave it to Jake already, didn't she? I asked, turning the screen toward Grandma. Even though I'm the older one. Even though it was supposed to be shared. Grandma leaned forward, studying the picture. Her expression hardened. That necklace has been in our family for 3 generations, she said quietly. Your great-grandmother split her jewelry between her daughters equally. That's why I gave it to your mother, with specific instructions. She exhaled slowly, then met my gaze. Mia, there's something you need to know. And then she said something that made my blood run cold. The cruise hadn't been paid for with my parents' money at all. 2 months ago, Grandma had given them $15,000 to plan a family vacation, explicitly stating it was meant for all of us. Instead, they had used my portion to upgrade their own cabins, book extra excursions, and add luxury dining experiences. I felt sick. All those extra shifts, all the money I had saved, thinking I was contributing to a once-in-a-lifetime experience with my family, only to be discarded. Grandma's voice was heavy with disappointment. I've been watching, Mia. For years. I've seen how they treat you differently. I kept hoping they would change, that they would realize what they were doing. But this is the last straw. She stood up, walked to her desk, and pulled out a thick manila envelope. I wasn't going to show you this yet, she said, handing it to me. But you need to see it. Inside were records, bank statements, photos, emails, handwritten notes, spanning years. Every single time they had favored Jake over me. Every time they had taken advantage of my kindness. Every penny they had spent differently between us. I flipped through them, my hands trembling. It wasn't just in my head. It had never been in my head. The favoritism, the gaslighting, the way they had made me feel crazy for years, it was all here. Documented in black and white. But why? I whispered, my voice barely audible. The weight of all those years of denial came crashing down on me. Why did they always make me feel like I was imagining it? Grandma's eyes flashed with something fierce. Because that's what people do when they know they're wrong, she said firmly. They try to make you doubt yourself. But not anymore, Mia. Not anymore. The cruise was supposed to last 7 days. But I wasn't going to sit here mourning the family that had never truly valued me. The next morning, as I sat in Grandma's kitchen, going through the documents, my phone lit up again. Jake, Mom said you're spreading lies about us. Why can't you just be happy for once instead of trying to ruin everything? I stared at the message, my anger bubbling just beneath the surface. Even now, after everything, they were still trying to turn this around on me. I exhaled slowly, set my phone down, and made a decision. They wanted to pretend like I didn't exist? Fine. I'd make sure they never got another opportunity to use me again. I grabbed my laptop and pulled up my bank account. I had been saving for their vacation for months. Now, I was about to book one for myself. Not because I needed a getaway. Because for the first time in my life, I was finally choosing me. Trying to make me the villain, even after what they had done. Instead of responding to Jake's text, I did something I had never dared to do before. I posted the truth on social media. Funny how being lied to about my grandmother being hospitalized, just so my family could exclude me from a vacation, somehow makes me the problem. I attached the photo of Jake's best vacation ever post. Even funnier how the cruise was paid for with money that was meant to include me. Within minutes, my post exploded with reactions. Family friends who had known us for years expressed their shock. My cousins, who hadn't known the full story, messaged me privately, sharing their own observations of how I had been treated differently over the years. Then, my phone rang. Dad. I almost didn't answer. But Grandma's words echoed in my mind. Stand your ground. You've done nothing wrong. I took a deep breath and picked up. Take down that post immediately, he demanded, his voice cold. You're embarrassing this family. I exhaled slowly. No, Dad. You embarrassed this family when you lied about Grandma being sick. When you took her money meant for all of us, and used it to exclude me. That's not how it happened, he snapped. We needed a break from your constant. He stopped himself. My constant what, Dad? My voice was eerily calm. My constant reliability? My constant help with Grandma? My constant effort to be part of this family despite how you treat me. The line went quiet. Then, his tone changed. Colder. If you don't take down that post and apologize publicly for your lies, you'll regret it. You have no idea what's at stake here. I swallowed hard. Are you threatening me? I'm warning you. His voice was sharp. Your mother and I have protected you all these years. Kept certain things from you. If you want to play this game, fine. But remember, you're not the only one who can tell stories. The call ended abruptly, leaving me shaken. What things had they protected me from? What stories could they possibly tell? I called Grandma immediately. They're trying to scare me, I told her, my voice unsteady. Dad said they've been protecting me from something, but he won't say what. Grandma was silent for a long moment. Then, in a low voice, she said, Go to your email. I'm sending you something. It's time you knew everything. My stomach churned as I opened my laptop. My hands trembled as I clicked on the email. The attachment was a scanned document, dated 25 years ago. A trust agreement. My breath caught in my throat as I read it. According to the paperwork, my maternal grandfather had left behind a significant fortune before he passed away, $2 million, to be divided equally between his grandchildren when they turned 30. My chest tightened as I scrolled further. A series of bank statements followed. They showed regular withdrawals from the trust over the years. Money that had been used to fund Jake's dance lessons, his private school tuition, his college education, even his wedding. Every major expense in Jake's life had been covered by the trust. My trust. I stared at the numbers, my mind struggling to process what I was seeing. They had spent over $500,000 of my inheritance. While I had worked multiple jobs to put myself through college. While I had gone into debt to afford an education. While I had struggled, thinking that I just hadn't been good enough for them to help. The betrayal was staggering. I clutched my phone tighter, barely able to form the words. They've been stealing from me since I was 3 years old. Grandma's voice was heavy with regret. Your mother convinced the trustee, her brother, Michael, to give her early access to your portion. Claimed it was for your benefit. But as you can see, they spent it all on Jake. My vision blurred. They never planned for me to have anything. Then, another email notification popped up. This time, from my Uncle Michael. I clicked it open, my pulse pounding in my ears. Mia, I can't keep quiet anymore. What they did with the cruise money was the last straw. I've attached documentation of every withdrawal, every expense, every lie they've told you. I should have spoken up sooner. I'm sorry. Another set of files loaded on my screen. Even more records. More evidence. I felt like I was suffocating. Everything I had believed about my family was a lie. They hadn't just favored Jake. They had stolen from me, robbed me of opportunities. And now they were trying to silence me, to threaten me into submission, because they knew the truth was finally coming to light. I wasn't going to let them. Taking a shaky breath, I reopened my social media. And I started typing. Turns out being excluded from a family vacation was just the tip of the iceberg. My parents have been stealing from me my entire life. And now, they're threatening me to stay silent. But I won't. I attached the trust documents, the bank statements, the proof. Then I hit post. They had spent years pretending I didn't matter. Now, the whole world would know exactly who they really were. Every withdrawal they made from your trust. Uncle Michael's voice was heavy with regret. I'm so sorry, Mia. I should have stopped them years ago. I swallowed hard as I clicked through the files he had sent me. The deeper I dug, the worse it became. My parents hadn't just spent my trust fund on Jake. They had been embezzling money for themselves too. The cruise? That was just the latest example of their ongoing scheme. I clenched my jaw, forcing my voice to stay steady. Why didn't you tell me sooner? I asked Grandma, struggling to process the sheer magnitude of the betrayal. She sighed. I only discovered the extent of it recently, she admitted. When I confronted your mother about it last month, she swore they would pay it all back. That's when I gave them the cruise money. I frowned. Why would you do that? It was a test, Mia. Her voice was firm. I wanted to see if they'd finally do the right thing. I let out a bitter laugh. And they failed spectacularly. Yes, Grandma agreed. But their failure has given us exactly what we needed: proof. A new sense of determination surged through me. We can take legal action. Better than that, Grandma said, and I could hear the steel in her voice. We can make sure they never hurt you again. I hesitated. What do you mean? Check the second attachment in my email. I clicked it open and gasped. It was Grandma's will. Recently updated. She had made me the sole heir to her estate. But that wasn't even the biggest revelation. The estate included controlling interest in the family company. The same company where my father was CEO. My stomach twisted. Grandma, this means. Yes, she said firmly. They're about to learn that their actions have consequences. I met Uncle Michael at a small cafe in downtown Denver. His dark circles and shaky hands told me he hadn't slept much. He slid a thick folder across the table. These are copies of every document. Every transaction. His voice was quiet but urgent. I've already sent everything to the family attorney. I flipped through the pages, my anger rising with every new piece of damning evidence. What are they saying? I asked. Michael exhaled sharply. They're claiming it was all done with your best interests in mind. That they were protecting you from having too much money too young. I snorted. That's rich, considering Jake had everything handed to him on a silver platter. Michael hesitated. I found something else. Something they don't know I know about. I looked up. What? He pulled out another document, this one showing a series of recent transfers to an offshore account. They're planning to leave the country, Mia. My blood ran cold. What? Michael nodded grimly. They've been moving money around, preparing for something. The cruise wasn't just a vacation, it was a test run. They were checking if their passports would raise any red flags. I gripped the edge of the table. And Jake? Michael's face hardened. He's involved. He's been helping them set up accounts in his name to hide the money. At that exact moment, my phone buzzed. A text from Jake. I know what you're doing. You've always been jealous of me, and now you're trying to ruin everything. Well, guess what? You're too late. By the time you figure it out, we'll be gone and you'll have nothing. I froze, my heart hammering. Then, without a word, I handed my phone to Uncle Michael. His face paled. They're moving faster than I thought. We need to act now. I didn't hesitate. I called Grandma. She picked up on the first ring, her voice tense. Mia, they're at the family company right now. What? I shot up from my chair, my stomach twisting into a knot. Your father's cleaning out his office. Security just called me. Can they stop him? Better, Grandma said, her voice cold. I've already called the police and the FBI. The Financial Crimes Division is on their way. I gripped my phone tighter. Grandma. Mia, you need to get down there. You're the controlling shareholder now. The paperwork was filed first thing this morning. My chair scraped against the floor as I bolted up. Michael grabbed his keys. Let's go. Now. We raced to the car, my heart pounding in my ears. My parents thought they could steal from me. They thought they could silence me. They thought they could run. They were about to find out just how wrong they were. They don't know that yet, do they? Uncle Michael said as we sped toward the company's headquarters. And that's our advantage. Get there before they can destroy any evidence. My documentation proves the theft, but there might be more we don't know about. My mind was racing as I gripped the steering wheel. The weight of everything my parents had done, all the lies, all the manipulation, it had finally caught up to them. Then, another text came through. Mom, you ungrateful child. After everything we've done for you, you'll regret this. I stared at the words, waiting for the familiar pang of guilt. But for the first time in my life, their threats didn't frighten me. I had the truth on my side. And more importantly, I had nothing left to lose. I pulled into the parking lot of Carter Enterprises, my heart pounding as I spotted my parents walking out of the glass doors, each carrying boxes from my father's office. Jake was with them, his expression tense as his eyes darted around. He knew something was coming. Then they saw me step out of my car. They froze. What are you doing here? My father's voice was sharp, attempting to maintain his authoritative CO tone. But I saw the fear in his eyes. I smiled coolly. Funny, I was about to ask you the same thing. Especially since you're removing items from my company without authorization. Your company? Jake scoffed, rolling his eyes. What are you talking about? I held up my phone. The ownership documents. Grandma transferred her controlling shares to me this morning. Their faces paled. As the new majority shareholder, I continued, I'm very interested in those boxes you're carrying. Would they happen to contain evidence of what you did with my trust fund? My mother's hands tightened around the box she was holding. My father clenched his jaw. Jake looked at them, clearly realizing he had been kept in the dark about just how much control they had lost. Then, behind them, sirens. Red and blue lights flashed as police cars and unmarked FBI vehicles pulled into the lot. Agents stepped out, their expressions unreadable, scanning the scene as they approached. A second later, Uncle Michael's car pulled up, with Grandma sitting in the passenger seat, watching everything unfold. My mother turned to me, her voice shaking. You don't understand, she pleaded. Everything we did was for this family. I shook my head. No, Mom. Everything you did was for Jake. And now you are planning to run away with what's left of my money. Then I turned to my brother. Did you enjoy the cruise, Jake? My voice was eerily calm. Was it worth it? Jake's face crumpled, his hands shaking. Mia, please. But it was too late. The truth had finally caught up to them. I sat on Grandma's porch in Denver, watching the autumn leaves drift lazily to the ground as we shared our morning coffee. You know, Grandma said, taking a slow sip, your grandfather would be proud of how you handled everything. He always said money reveals people's true characters. I nodded, staring out at the golden hues of the trees. The FBI's investigation had revealed even more than we had initially suspected. My parents hadn't just embezzled from me, they had been stealing from the company for years. They were now facing federal charges for fraud, money laundering, and embezzlement. Alongside that, shareholders had filed civil suits against them. And Jake? He had made a deal with prosecutors, testifying against our parents in exchange for immunity. He had moved to Minnesota, forced to finally support himself without Mom and Dad's financial safety net. The last message he had sent me was a lengthy apology, but some wounds run too deep for words to fix. I exhaled, setting my coffee down. I never wanted any of this, I admitted, my voice quiet. I just wanted to be treated fairly. Grandma reached over, squeezing my hand. Sometimes life's greatest blessings come disguised as its greatest challenges. You turned their betrayal into something positive. She was right. I had taken control of the company, making sweeping changes. We had implemented a scholarship fund for employees' children. We had created a transparent financial system, ensuring that no one could ever be taken advantage of again. And despite everything, the business was thriving, built on integrity rather than deception. I leaned back, letting the crisp autumn breeze wash over me. That cruise they took without me? It hadn't been the vacation of a lifetime after all. It had been the beginning of their downfall. And the start of my new life. After everything I've been through, I have to ask, what would you have done in my place? Would you have stayed silent, let them walk away with everything that was meant for you? Or would you have fought back, knowing the truth was on your side? I never wanted this battle. All I ever wanted was to be treated with the same love and respect as everyone else in my family. But when I finally saw the truth, the years of lies, the stolen trust fund, the gaslighting, I had a choice. Let them keep taking from me, or stand up for myself. I chose to stand. Now, I want to hear from you. If you've ever felt overlooked, betrayed, or made to feel like you didn't matter, share your story in the comments. I know I'm not the only one who's been through something like this. Maybe your situation isn't about money, but about respect, love, or being seen for who you truly are. How did you find your strength? Let's talk about it. And if you're still in a place where you feel like you're not being valued, let me be the one to tell you, you deserve better. You don't have to keep proving yourself to people who refuse to see your worth. Start investing in you. Choose yourself. Trust yourself. And when the time comes, don't be afraid to walk away from people who only keep you around for what they can take from you. Comment below, what's one lesson from my story that you're going to apply to your own life? Let's support each other. Because in the end, the best revenge is living well.